Hi, and welcome to another episode of Acorn Wealth Hot Topics. I'm Anthony Parente, and today I'm joined with Senior Financial Advisor Simon Guiliano. Hi, Simon.
Hey, Anthony.
So, in the news, we've been hearing a lot about death benefit tax on superannuation. Can you tell us a bit about that, Simon, if there's anything to worry about?
Okay, so with death benefit tax, I guess what the concept is behind that is if a superannuation owner passes away, then their children may have to pay tax upon receipt of their superannuation benefits. So typically, this only applies to adult children or other beneficiaries who aren't considered tax dependents. So a tax dependent for super purposes is a spouse or a dependent child. Anybody else may be required to pay tax.
Sure. Well, I thought all super was tax-free.
Look, yes, it's tax-free for the superannuation member themselves. They can get their superannuation out when they're over age 60 tax-free. But what we're talking about here is what happens on death and where does it pass to. So essentially, there are two components to your superannuation benefits. One is a tax-free component whereby that goes to beneficiaries tax-free, regardless of who they are. And there's also a taxable component whereby the tax that beneficiaries pay, if they're not tax dependents, could be anywhere from 15% up to 30%. So it's quite a bit.
Right. So is there any ways to minimise or avoid the tax?
Yes, look, there are strategies which we call withdrawal and recontribution strategies. So I guess to summarise what that is, what we look at is for superannuation members who are able to access their superannuation, they can take lump sums out of their super and then effectively recontribute those back into superannuation. And what that does is it changes the mix of the components from being taxable or partly taxable to fully tax-free. And so what we can do is do that over a number of years with the aim of trying to reduce down those taxable components, increase the tax-free component, and reduce tax that beneficiaries may ultimately have to pay.
Sure. And does that have anything to do with updating your will or...?
Look, not specifically. So superannuation typically does bypass the will. If you've got nominations on your superannuation that leaves it directly to someone, then it doesn't go via the will. However, you may have a nomination on your superannuation which leaves it to your legal personal representative, whereby it would go through the will. So look, it doesn't specifically mean that you've got to update your will. However, as good practice, you should always make sure that your will is up to date and in tune with your wishes. And that might take into effect, if any superannuation is going to pass through to your estate.
Sure. And what would be the next steps if I wanted to look into this?
Look, always get advice. It is quite a complex area. So the best thing to do is speak to your financial advisor and look at ways in which we may be able to work with you to ensure that over time we can improve the tax situation ultimately for your children. That'll get you a better result.
Sure. Thanks, Simon. And that is all for this edition of Acorn Wealth Hot Topics. If you have any questions on death benefit tax, feel free to contact us on 1300 455 170. Thank you.